Welcome back to my channel. It is the last day of September, and so you guys know what this means. It is time for a recap of all of the books that I read this month. I read about 10 books this month, and actually only 3 of them I have the physical copy to. All of the rest were either like books that I have on my Kindle, I borrowed them from the library, or listened to the audiobook. There's lots of different variations of books that I've read on here. So starting off, I have talked about some of these, but not all of them. So starting off with the first book, we're going to do these in order of when I read them. So the first book, you guys know that I read this if you watch my other videos, but I started off the month strong with The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I did end up rating this book 5 stars. I loved this book. I absolutely loved it. If the 5 stars doesn't give it away, I loved this book. I felt like this book was everything that I was hoping that I would feel, and just that it would be. Like I waited a really long time to actually read this book because I felt like it was getting really hyped on social media and on TikTok and all the things, and I'd been recommended this book years ago, and so when I saw that it was getting a lot of hype, I was like feeling like I was starting to have unrealistic expectations of like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna sob, or you're gonna cry so hard when you read this book. And so I kind of tried to wait. I read a bunch of other Kristen Hanna's, and I tried to wait to read this one until the hype kind of died down on it. And I'm really glad that I did that, because I kind of went into this book with like open eyes and just fresh. Like I didn't really have any really high expectations. I just went into it ready to enjoy the ride that Kristen Hanna was going to take us on in this book, and I loved it. I absolutely loved every part of this book. I do feel like it got a little bit slow at one point right around the middle, but not like, it was actually maybe like 25% through the book. It got a little bit slow. Like you're still building the characters and your relationship with the characters, and not much was happening just yet. And I felt like it got just a little bit slow there. But other than that, I feel like I was really along for the ride with this one, and the end really did make me cry. It was very emotional, and I loved it. I loved every second of reading this book. So 5-star for sure. And I loved starting my month out with a 5-star book because it just got me in the mood to read. So the next book was, I don't have this one. It is The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. This book I gave a 4-star. If you're wondering why I'm looking over here, it's because I put all of my books that I read in my ratings right here on my laptop. Okay, so I read this one next. I kept seeing this one on social media and Instagram, YouTube. I'd heard a lot of people talk about this book, and I'd never read a book by Jessica Joyce. She has The X-Files, and I think it's called You with a View, if I'm correct. And I haven't read one of her books yet. So I tried this one. This is about 2 best friends. It's actually about a friend group of 3 people who are best friends. There's 2 guys and a girl, and one of the guys and the girl end up dating, and then they break up, and now the other guy is getting married, and they are like the best people in his wedding, and a bunch of stuff is going wrong, and like things, it's just becoming a disaster. And so these 2 exes have to work together to basically save their best friend's wedding. And so it's a second chance romance. It takes place on like a beautiful vineyard type vibe. I do wish that I would have read this around like the spring or summer and not the end of summer into fall, because, you know, we were kind of, everybody's kind of ready for like the fall season, the weather's changing, and, you know, it was just not the best time to read this book. I feel like if I would have read it at the end of spring and the very beginning of summer, it would have been the perfect, like, beginning of summer. You know, usually the beginning of summer is wedding season, and that's just, it would have been like the perfect vibe. But I felt like I read it a little bit in the wrong timing. Not that that means that it wasn't a good book, just that there could have been better timing for it. So I would definitely recommend this book. I gave it a 4-star. I definitely recommend this book to anybody. If those tropes are like, you're like, yeah, I definitely think I would like that, then 100% pick up this book. It was pretty spicy. It wasn't like too spicy, but a little bit more than I prefer personally, but it was still good and I still recommend it. So if those are the tropes that you guys that you like and that you like to read, I would definitely recommend picking up The X-Files. Then the next book, I do have the physical copy too. So the next book is The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. This book is a workplace second chance romance. So it takes place that the main character girl is guys, this happens every time. Every time I try to talk about this book, I cannot remember what her job title is. Guys, this is absolutely ridiculous. She's an agent. She's an agent for football players, and I literally cannot get over that. Every time I try to start explaining the premise of this book, I forget that word every single time. So, anyways, she is an agent for a football team, and she is finally getting trusted with like a very, very valuable player to the team. And she finds out that the player that they're wanting her to work with is actually her ex-boyfriend from college. And so her name is Nora, but she now goes by Mac for Mackenzie. And so she reaches out to him in an email about becoming his new agent. And when they meet up, he realizes like right away that it's Nora, the girl that he used to date, and that he has never gotten over her, and he's very upset about how things ended. And so he decides to finally take her up on the offer of her being his agent, but he's going to make her life basically miserable. He's going to... Okay, so finishing off this one, he wants to get back at her for when she hurt him back in college, when she kind of broke up with him with like no reasoning, like he had no clue that she was going to do this. It wasn't even like they were like subtly just falling out of love with each other. It was nothing like that. It all happened very quickly. One day they're perfectly happy, and the next day she's packing up boxes and saying that she's done. And so basically this book I feel like I really liked this book. It wasn't like my all-time favorite romance or even my favorite Sarah Adams book, but I really enjoyed it. And I will say that the beginning of football season was the perfect time to read this book, because my husband and I love watching football together. And so the beginning of September is just a really fun time for football. And, you know, we were watching lots of football games every week. There's a new football game on. And I really, really loved not only watching football games and going to football games, but also reading a book about football. this is the perfect example of reading a book in the right timing and how that really affects how you feel about the book afterwards. This book, I did end up giving a 3-star because I really did feel like I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I ended up walking away from finishing this book, and I don't really think I've thought back about these characters even once since I finished this book. Like, I loved it while I was reading it. I enjoyed it, and then I basically put it down and forgot about them immediately and moved on to a different book. So I feel like that is why I definitely recommend it. And I think, based on the synopsis and what the book is about, if you think that sounds really good, I would definitely pick this book up and read it at some point. But it doesn't make like my top reads even for September. So it was very fun. I do not regret reading it. It was a great book, but 3-star for me. Then the next book is the last one that I do have the physical copy for, and that is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This book is, so I read at the end of last month, I read The Next of Kin by the same author. And I did talk about it on my channel, but I loved that book. I loved the book The Next of Kin. I felt like I could not stop thinking about the characters afterwards, and I'm really excited that there's more books in that world with those, not those same main characters, but with some of the side characters from that first book. They end up getting their own book in that series. And because I loved that one so much, I felt like I really needed to read Out on a Limb. This book is actually the one that has been recommended to me the most. I just picked up The Next of Kin because that's what I had. And so after I read that one and loved it, I decided to pick up this one. And I will say I didn't love it as much as The Next of Kin, but they were very, very close. Very close. Like, they're probably, if I really got down into the nitty gritty on my ratings on these, it would probably be like 0.25 of a star away from each other, because when I first started reading this one, I felt like I was kind of missing the plot and the characters of The Next of Kin. And so that was a little part of me that was like, okay, I don't think that I connected with these characters as much as I did with the other characters, but I still loved the book. I loved the premise. I loved the plot. This book is about two people that meet at their friend's Halloween party, and they end up having a one-night stand, and the main character girl gets pregnant, and so they hadn't talked to each other since that Halloween party, and she finds out that she's pregnant, and so she has to reach out to him again and see how much a part of this journey he wants to be a part of. And he ends up wanting to be a part of it. And it's a very cute read. It was, I don't often pick up the like unexpected pregnancy trope type books. I've actually only read one other book like this before, and I kind of liked it, but I didn't love it. So I was a little bit worried that I wouldn't love this one, but I do think that the characters definitely redeemed that plot for me. Although I don't love that trope, I do think that like this story kind of saved that for me. I did really, really enjoy this book, and I do give this book a 4-star, which is the same thing that I rated The Next of Kin, but if I really had to get down to it, I'd probably say The Next of Kin was like a 4.25, maybe even a 4.5, and that this one was a solid 4-star. But I did really like both of them. I do recommend both of them. I thought they were both great. And yeah, I really enjoyed both. So then the next book was, I really started to get into the fall mood here, and I read The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, which is Dream Harbor Book 2 by Lori Gilmore. For those of you who don't know about this series, it's everywhere. It's all over social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It is like one of the most talked about fall themed books. The first book is called The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I'll put both pictures up over here, but the first book is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and the second book in the series is The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and she does have 2 more coming out. So I feel a little bit disappointed by this book, which is really sad because I think I had like too high of hopes for this book. I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe because I read this last year because everybody was talking about it, and I really wanted a fall read. And the dedication in that book is about like to the Luke and Loreleis out there or something like that. It's got like a Gilmore Girls dedication, and I was like, this is peak fall vibes. I have to read this. And I did read it, and I loved it. So I really liked that one. I would probably give it a 4-star. And so I was kind of expecting something very similar in the second book. And the biggest thing that I was disappointed about is that it mostly takes place in the summer. And so I feel like I really only picked up the books in this series for the fall vibes, because both of the covers have like very, very fall vibed covers. So I don't know if any of you guys have read this book. Please like let me know in the comments. How did you guys feel about this? And I don't know, were you expecting? A lot of the book takes place during the summer, and so the whole at least the first 50% of the book, I was like, okay, I literally picked this up for fall vibes, and I'm getting summer vibes, and I'm really done with summer. Here in Michigan, it stayed hot for a little while. We got like 2 or 3 more weeks of like high 80-degree weather, and so we were just, I was done with the summer weather. I was done with the summer season, and I was a little bit frustrated that I thought this book was going to be more fall themed, and it wasn't. So on Goodreads, I gave this a 3-star, but I would probably say it was like a 2.5 for me, which is really sad because I don't know, I was really excited about this book, but it's okay. I still really loved the first one, so I can always go back and reread the first book, The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. And she is coming out with 2 more books. She's coming out with a winter themed book, and then one that looks kind of springy, summery. I'm not quite sure, but it has, I think, something about like strawberries or something on it. But I am still excited for those 2 books, and I will still be reading those when they come out. Then the last 4 books that I read in September, I did vlog about these, so at least about 3 of them. These books were picked based on, they were recommended to me by my favorite authors, was like the video that I did. And so the first book that I read was called Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This one is a young adult romance. The cover is adorable. I cannot get over like how cute and pink the cover is. I just thought it was adorable. And I did really enjoy this one. I originally gave it a 3-star, but let me just see. I gave it a 3-star on Goodreads, but I want to say, yeah, I probably, it's probably more like a 3.5. It's like kind of right in between a 3-star and a 4-star. And the farther out I get from when I read the book, the more I do still think about it a little bit. I did think that it was really cute. It was just like a cute, wholesome, coming of age, high school into college, young adult romance. And there wasn't really like much to say about it. I didn't have like any really crazy thoughts or feelings about it. So it kind of just stays right around like a 3.5 star. Then the next book was Between Friends and Lovers. I do not know how to say this author's name, so we're just going to say Charlene. And this one was an adult romance about a woman who's an influencer and a doctor, but she's kind of a doctor because of like she feels the need to be a doctor to like impress people, but really what she loves is her social media, and she has a very large following on social media. And she meets this guy at a party, and he follows her. They've had many conversations online before, and they end up hitting it off and having a great time. But she's also kind of still in love with her childhood best friend that she's kind of always loved, and he's never really loved her back. And so this was a love triangle and a little bit of like a second chance romance vibe with the childhood best friend. It wasn't like they dated previously, so it wasn't technically a second chance romance, but it very much felt like it. It, whenever she talked about the childhood best friend, it like felt like she was like reminiscing about the past and about, how their youth was together and stuff like that. So this one I was not very impressed with, just because I don't love triangles. So it's really hard because I think that the author's writing was good. I think I really liked the main character. I didn't love either of the love interests. Like, I didn't really fall for either of them. And so I was just kind of like along for the ride. Like, I was just reading. I don't know. I just wasn't super impressed with this one. I didn't love it. So I ended up giving this one a 3-star, and I'm just going to stick at a solid 3-star rating. I would recommend it, but it was not my favorite. But it wasn't like, it definitely wasn't bad at all. Like, I wouldn't say, oh, I would never recommend this book. This was trash. I hated anything. I don't feel that way about it at all. I just simply did not love it. So it sits right at a 3-star, where I kind of think that that's kind of the perfect place for it. Then the second to last book is Marriage and Masti. I believe that's how you say it, but I'm not sure. This is by Nisha Sharma. This was the third book that I read in that video of books that were recommended to me by authors. And this one was pretty fun. I would say that this is probably the one I enjoyed the most out of all 3 books that I read. And yeah, it was definitely, it was fun. It was a childhood best friend, and then there's a little bit of strife between them, and then they end up going away on this trip, and while they're away, they decide to elope and get married. And so then to protect both of their identity, like not their identities, but to protect both of their image, they decide that it would actually be best if they play it off like they had always been in love and that they meant to get married. But that isn't what happened. They randomly got drunk one night and eloped. And so they end up just playing it off and telling their families that they did it on purpose, that they'd always loved each other, that this was always the plan and always what they wanted to do. And yeah, obviously you can see where that story is going. I definitely liked this one probably the most. And I ended up giving, on Goodreads, I gave this one a 4-star, but I would probably say it was more like a 3.5, but on the higher end of like a 3.5, like somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4. I know I get really particular with my ratings, but I just feel like some ratings, like, you know, I also rated Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute a 3.5, but I didn't enjoy that one as much as this one. So it's just really hard. I just try to be as accurate as I can be with my ratings for your guys' benefit. So you, I don't know, can take my ratings as you will. But yeah, I definitely liked this book. Like I said, I didn't love it. I actually didn't love any of the books that were recommended to me. I liked all 3 of them, but I didn't love them, which is just very interesting because they were all recommended to me by people whose books I love. So that was actually a really fun challenge, and I would definitely do it again. But it's also hard to read books. I'm definitely a mood reader, and it's really hard to read books that are picked by somebody else and not books that you pick to read for yourself. So that was a little bit difficult, but I definitely still enjoyed the challenge and I loved doing it. Then finally, the last book of September is called The Measure. It's by Nikki Ehrlich. And I have no clue if that's how you say her name either, but I really enjoyed this book. Actually, I gave this one a 4-star, but you know, like I've said, this is kind of on the higher end of a 4-star. Somewhere between a 4 and a 5 maybe, but I really, really enjoyed this book. This was our book club book for this month, and I feel like it had really great discussion and it had lots to talk about. This book the concept is that imagine one day everybody in the world wakes up with a little wooden box at their door, and inside the wooden box has a string in it, and the string is the measure of your life. So, you know, the string tells you how long that you're going to live and when you're going to die. Basically, not like exactly when you're going to die, but you'll know basically how many years you have left of your life. And so obviously this brought up a really, really cool discussion. Like, for example, would you look in the box? Would you look at your string? Also, you know, would you date somebody who had a really short string? Knowing that means that you won't get to live a full life with them. Just really interesting things like that. And as you read the book, it really goes into depth about how much society conforms to a situation like this. And it was very reminiscent of all of us living through a pandemic when the world was changing and people were getting vaccines, not getting vaccines, wearing masks, not wearing masks, and, you know, decisions were being made for people if they couldn't get the vaccine for some reason. And it reminds us how much people change. We change as people and as a society. It was a very, very interesting read. It had great discussions, and I highly recommend reading this book, but I also highly, highly recommend it as a book club book specifically. I think that this was a really, really great book, and it had great discussion. I also think I was so impressed that this is actually the author's debut novel, which is just crazy to me because it was written so well, and it was such a just such a unique concept for this to be the author's first novel. So I really liked this one. I did give it a 4-star, but I would even think about possibly rating it higher, because I feel like the longer that I go from reading the book, the more I am still thinking about the book and the characters. And yeah, I just really enjoyed that one. So highly recommend The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. Okay, and then finally for the last part of this video, I'm going to do my fall or my October TBR. So starting off with An Ember in the Ashes, I'm actually currently reading this book. I think like 20%. And I'm really enjoying this so far. This is the new cover of this book. They have gone through 3 covers so far for this series, but this one is my favorite so far. I just love this and how the spines all like line up to make a picture. It is very satisfying, and they are just so pretty, and I really like them. They're like a nice, I don't know, it's just like a nice feel. I really like it. So far I was kind of in a young adult fantasy mood so far in October. So I am reading this one now, and then the next one I was thinking about possibly jumping back into a series that I read years ago, and I never got past the first book, and that is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. I still cannot believe that I've never made it past the first book. So that's crazy. I loved this book. I've actually read this book twice, I think. I read this way back in like middle school, and I didn't love it, and then I picked it back up in high school, and I did love it, and so just all the things. But I'm thinking about this, just gives like, these are the original covers. They have updated these covers. I'll put a picture over here of what the new covers look like. These are the original covers, but yeah, this came out in 2012. So these have been around for a little bit, but I don't know, they just kind of give the fall season. So I'm thinking about possibly picking up the Cinder series, and I don't know how many books of this I'll try to read if I even get to it. Then we have a couple young adult romances that I'm pretty excited about. I've saved these for fall. So I have Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice. This one I think just came out recently, but yeah, this came out this year, 2024. And yeah, I'm really excited to read this one. It looks super cute. It looks kind of cheesy. It looks like the perfect little cheesy pumpkin spice season young adult romance, and I feel like it'll be perfect for October. Then the other one, I've had this one now for a while, and I did save this one because I was going to read it a couple months back, and I realized that it does take place in the fall, and that is Maybe Meant to Be. I read The Summer of Broken Rules in the summer, and I was like almost immediately going to pick this one up because I really enjoyed The Summer of Broken Rules. And then when I found out that it takes place in the fall, I was like, well, I have to wait for the fall time to read this. So this is on the October TBR for sure. And then I was possibly thinking about picking up an Agatha Christie because I've never read an Agatha Christie, and she is known for cozy mysteries, classic mysteries, And this is And Then There Were None. I also have Murder on the Orient Express, but I think I would want to pick up And Then There Were None first. Yeah, this one is just, it literally says right on it, the Queen of Mystery. So I've never read an Agatha Christie, and I feel like fall is the perfect excuse to read one. So I'm very excited about this one. And then the last book on my October TBR is our book club book of this month, which is Home is Where the Bodies Are. I will put a picture up over here, and I don't remember the name of the author of this one, but we voted on some thrillers for our fall October book club pick, and this one is the one that won. And I'm very excited about this one because this is actually a newer release, and every time I see the cover of this book, every single time it like draws my eye, and I'm like, I need to read that book. So I'm very excited to pick that up, and I think I have a very fun fall TBR here. We've got like a bunch of genres. We've got fantasy, romance, mystery. I'm very excited. Thriller. Home is Where the Bodies Are is a thriller. So we've got lots of really fun fall reads to read in October. So I'm very excited. I might even do some like reading vlogs through some of these. We'll see. Especially if I pick up the Cinder series, I feel like I should totally vlog if I read like multiple books in the series, because I have not read the Lunar Chronicles in years. But I feel like this is just like this book is about like the different fairy tales, but in like a sci-fi world. It's very interesting, and there's really nothing like it. I've never seen another book or series that's like very similar to this series. It's very unique. So I really think that maybe it's time for me to pick the series up and really get into it this fall season. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye.